Hey everybody! As usual, TikTok is taking forever to get started, but welcome to the show. Imagine us starting on time. Could never be us. That's why we made an intro video to help us buffer. Sly, are you here?
I don't see you live. There you are.
Oh no. Okay. Well, we're coming, TikTok. Just give us a second here. But hello to everyone on YouTube and Twitch. If you're here, shout us out or shout out yourselves in the comments so we know you're here. We can say good evening. Hey, welcome, welcome, friends. It's so good to see you. And hello to everyone hanging out with us on TikTok. We're just getting started over here. A few housekeeping things before we get started. I am sick. I have been sick. I am still sick. It's okay. We're going to get through the show together, but we're definitely also going to be gentle with my voice as I sound like I have sandpaper in my throat, and that's okay. Also, clearly one of us is not here. Oh, there we go. There's my green screen. Alexis is not with us tonight, but she'll be back next week. Hey to everyone watching on Twitch. Good to see you. What's up, friends? Sylvan, we saw you all over Twitter this week and in the DMs. Hey, JJ, I'm glad you like the new color palette. Shout out Sly, who made the new background look pretty incredible. We have all kinds of exciting new things to show y'all. Hold on. Sly got disconnected from the TikTok stream. What's up with that?
They're still here. There's just no...
Hey!
Oh, they're back.
There it is. All right, maybe TikTok will work tonight, because if y'all remember last week, my TikTok stream was frozen the entire show, and it was very sad. But welcome to the first official episode of We'll Throw the After Party. Yay! Woo! We're clearly so excited and not at all distracted tonight. It's because we're not used to doing this without Alexis, but let's start with a quick round of intros. If you're new here, if it's your first time coming to the show, we're so happy to have you. What's happening, Marissa?
I lost the TikTok.
We just lost Marissa. It's okay. TikTok is not... Hold on here, everyone.
I requested again. Let me back in.
Well, with that dramatic introduction, Marissa, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh my God. Okay, hi. My name's Marissa. I'm at Miss of Obissa on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And I talk about pop culture and theater and wigs and yeah.
And sideburns this week with your Bridgerton video about Mr. Anthony Bridgerton. Okay.
Branching into facial hair.
Branching into facial hair and wigs. We love to see it. Marissa is also one of our award season extraordinaires here who's been following the Oscars and everything very closely. And we'll be talking more about that later. TikTok's being very temperamental this evening. So more of a reason to come hang out with us on YouTube and Twitch, where you can see all of our lovely faces in the backgrounds. If you click on producer Liz, there's a link to YouTube. It'll take you right to the stream. Hope to see you there. Sly, welcome back to the show. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sly. I'm a deaf queer person on the internet.
Who's playing with their bingo cards this evening? If you got a DM from us with a bingo card, check. There it is.
How else do I introduce myself then? I don't even know.
You have to give the people at least one little check per show, right? Like, so you're just the reliable. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
I'm queer. You can find me yelling about video games on Point in Progress. You can find me yelling about 911 on Lives with JJ. And you can find me, I don't know, being queer here on the internet.
This is a really strong start to the show. I'm obsessed. But yes, all those things. And also, you want to plug Pip?
Yes, please. Check out Point in Progress. If you are not into video games, don't worry. You can head over to Point in Progress on YouTube and just watch the Checkpoint episodes. That's our catching up, get to know us, what we've been playing, watching, consuming. Half of our weekly podcast. And if you do like video games, our second half of our weekly show is the patch notes, where we talk about the biggest story in gaming news that week and a couple other tidbits from the week where you can get all of our thoughts on that. You can find Point in Progress on YouTube. A couple days after our lives, you can find us live on Fridays on Twitch and on all the social medias. Where else can you find Point in Progress?
All the links are actually
That's
in
it.
the description of this video for once, because we
Are
actually
they?
made sure we started doing
Fancy.
that. So you can find Point in Progress in the description. And before I lose my voice, I'm producer Liz, and I usually sound a lot more excited and happy to be here than I do this evening, but I promise I am. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at producer Liz, talking about all things PR and pop culture predictions. And as of late, Taylor Swift and Harry Styles, especially heading into the Grammys tomorrow, we're making a lot of predictions for what we're gonna see, and I'll have some of that later in the show for y'all. Big weekend to be an insufferable Harry Styles fan with the new song that just dropped as it was. So if I didn't lose my voice, well, I definitely didn't have a voice going into the song, but my silent screams as I was watching the music video certainly took it away a little bit more. But anyway, that's who I am. That's what I talk about. And we have a lot to talk about this evening. So much so that, we have a whole Moon Knight special that, we're going to get to that. But first, we thought we could take some time to tell y'all all the other things we've been watching and consuming. And as the designated sick person of the week, there was a lot I was watching and consuming this week. But I won't start the conversation. I'll pass it back to Marissa. Marissa, what have you been watching this week that was not Moon Knight? Anything you want to shout out?
Yes, for sure. We gave a teaser of it in my intro, but last week I talked about reading Red, White, and Royal Blue, and that ushered me very nicely into season 2 of Bridgerton. All the tropes. So I watched season 2 of Bridgerton, and then I watched Driving Home to You, the Olivia Rodrigo concert movie situation. I loved it. I agree with everything Liz said about it last week. And then I watched Bridgerton again because in the span of 2 hours, I had 2 different friends start watching it for the first time, starting from the very first episode. One of them being Alexis. And I was getting reaction messages from both of these people, and I was like, I was already considering starting the show over, but I had to do it at that point. So, I've been Bridgerton all day, every day for the last week, basically. The second the Oscars ended, I started watching season 2, and I watched way too much of it that night. So
I watched it all in a day on Saturday before the Oscars, so I can't. No criticism from me. I think Sly is the last person in our group to catch up, right?
I still have not started Bridgerton. I will get to it eventually. It just hasn't gotten its hooks into me yet to make me, feel like I have to watch it.
That's fair.
Mhm.
We'll wait till Alexis is back before we fully sink our teeth into Bridgerton, because Alexis has many thoughts, all of which we received over text message. So we will pause on the Bridgerton conversation and simply leave it at go watch Marissa's iconic video about Wigs and Bridgerton and Anthony's sideburns in season 1. Sly, what were you watching this week? Or maybe we should say rewatching.
Yeah, so I was a little busy this week. If you go to our YouTube, you can see what I've been working on. I created many a thumbnail, but at the same time, I was very stressed. I had a very important day yesterday, and so in the lead up to that, I was anxiously binging West Wing, and oh boy, do I love this show. I watched West Wing for the first time last summer. I don't know why. I just never it was just never something that I heard of or started watching. And one of my co-hosts on Point in Progress, funnily enough, is Canadian, but his favorite show is West Wing, and he was talking about it a lot. And so I started watching it last year, and I loved it. And so it felt like the right time to revisit it. Is that because I found 2 911 fan fictions that were based on episodes of West Wing? Probably.
And if you're waiting for the 911, I think there's a 911 reference bubble on the bingo card.
It's Lone Star. I did not reference Lone Star yet.
Very true. Very true. If you're playing bingo tonight, let us know in the chat and let us know when you are dotting those circles off. And remember, if you get a little line, make sure to post it on your Instagram story and tag @AfterPartyShow. I also want to say hey to everyone hanging out with us on TikTok. Make sure you come over to the YouTube Twitch stream by clicking on Producer Liz. Yes, West Wing is a favorite of this show. Fan of the people that watch, obviously. We're a fan. Oh my God, I can't speak tonight. I'm trying to say we're a fan of the people on West Wing. Like, we are fans of the actors. And if you are Alexis, you are just a longtime West Wing fan and fanfiction fan. But I won't throw Alexis under the bus, and we'll also let Alexis come speak to that next week when she's back. I also did a lot of rewatching this week. When I'm sick, I can't take in new information. So I watched Bridgerton season 2, and then I rewatched Bridgerton season 1, and I started rewatching season 2 again just days later. So my head's also full of Bridgerton, and therefore the Bridgerton musical, which is up for a Grammy tomorrow. It will be given out during the afternoon session of the Grammys and that pre-show. So we shall know by tomorrow evening, not tomorrow night, if Bridgerton the musical, which started on TikTok as a TikTok series, has won a Grammy, which is super cool. I was very sick, so I watched the Oscars from the couch and was live tweeting on our new Twitter @AfterPartyShow if you want to see a thread of all the memes I was loving from the show and while listening to these guys do commentary. But I also rewatched Dune because what else do you want to do when you're sick than go through a political sci-fi thriller? Apparently, that's my way to feel better. So I was celebrating Dune, sweeping those technical Oscars as they should. I was so happy watching the Oscars, and every time they called Dune, I was doing a little golf clap on my couch because that's all I had the energy for. Very pleased, Dune fan here. Also, I was watching a very interesting movie that came out last night on Disney Plus. I want to take a brief second to talk about this because I know that so many of us that hang out together every week are former, almost recovered theater kids. Show of hands in the chat. Not shouting out anyone's usernames. Some of us have the word Broadway in our names. So, I know there's a lot of us here in the audience that may have seen a little movie come to Disney Plus called Better Nate Than Ever, which is directed by, I forget his name right now. Again, I'm sick. How many times am I going to say that tonight? But the director of High School Musical, the musical, the series, it's his book that he adapted into this movie for Disney Plus. And it's about this kid who gets the tree. Spoiler alert! If you don't want to watch a children's movie on Disney Plus, make sure you turn this off now. But he gets the role of a tree in the school play, so therefore he justifies running away to New York to audition for a Disney Broadway musical. And it's full of cute little hijinks and Disney Channel style humor. I was not 5 minutes into the show. I wasn't even done the introduction to the show when I texted Marissa to say, turn this movie on immediately because I feel like I'm watching you as a child with the Wicked poster in the bedroom. It's really quite the spectacle.
I also got this immediately and I went, but West Wing.
I was bullied into watching it.
I did straight up bully Marissa into watching it immediately.
What you cannot see is that there is a Wicked poster.
Turn off the green screen. I would like to see it.
It's in the closet, so it's hidden by the closet. But
the Wicked poster in the closet seems like a metaphor.
Directly behind.
That feels like.
My parents didn't let me put anything on the actual walls. I could only tape things into the closet walls.
Oh, I love that.
So it had to go in a frame if it was going to go on the wall.
Right. I respect that. I honestly respect that. As someone who tore her walls to shreds with J14 One Direction posters and Taylor Swift posters. Yeah. That's probably a good call on your parents' part. I'm seeing some questions about theater kid recovery. I don't know if we have to recover.
I agree. I'm not in recovery. I will never be recovered. I am an active theater kid and will be forever. There's no.
Why do you think we do our own show every week? We said give us our own stage.
Thank you.
I would call myself a retired.
Oh, retired, good alumni theater kid. If that is calling to your heart, then I highly recommend watching this movie. It is very funny. It is very what you would expect of a Disney Channel movie aimed at children's demographic. Lots of Broadway surprises and players that come in.
Deep cuts.
Would you like to share maybe your favorite moment from the film?
My favorite moment, I don't know that I have a favorite moment, but there were some like deep cut cameos that I don't know we would even really consider cameos to the general public, but to me they were very important. Like
Very
Ellen
important.
Marie Marsh showed up, Chad Burris showed up. You know, the movie was cast by Telsey, so like they are going theater first, so they know what they were looking for. Yeah.
So go give it a watch and let us know on Instagram at After Party Show when you watch, because I feel like next week we should talk about some of those deep cut moments from the movie that were very funny and spoke to our souls. But there's we literally have so much to talk about, and we have to get to Moon Knight because that was the moment of the week. And if you've been with us for a long time, you know we all watch Marvel here, and every week we critique it and we celebrate if there's anything to celebrate, and we do our thing. So I want to get to that. But before we do, it's everyone's favorite time of the week. So I'm going to pull up the clock. Give me a second here. Oh, no.
Okay, while you're pulling up the clock, let me just reply to some comments here.
It's going to make me leave the stream. So y'all take it away for a few moments here.
Okay. Claw, yes. Brooks Ashmanskas from The Prom is in it. When I saw him, I said, I'm so sorry James Corden stole your role, because James Corden stole his role in the Prom movie on Netflix. I also have all of my high school theater t-shirts in a quilt that is also directly behind me right now.
I actually might have my high school theater shirts. I don't think I took them to college, so I wouldn't have lost them. I might still have my high school theater shirts. Wow.
All right. Okay. Claw hasn't seen Moon Knight yet. We still have a few segments to cover before we get to Moon Knight. Yeah. We will probably be talking about spoilers, but you'll have some time before that happens. We just gotta tease everyone that it's coming soon.
There was a question a while back about the bingo card. Yes, that's for all the shows, not just tonight.
Yes. I mean, there are some very Alexis specific buttons on there, so it would be unfair to require it to be completed tonight. Okay, let's see what else we have. Claw's going to see Six, the musical on Broadway. I'm so excited for you. I saw the original company.
News. Oh my god,
I saw the original company in Chicago before it transferred. I can't wait to see it again.
I have some
Broadway
news.
Liz.
I have some Broadway news. I think I have landed Funny Girl tickets for June.
Ooh.
Look at you.
And if you know nothing about me, it's that I'm insufferable, which means I love Funny Girl. It's one of my favorite Broadway plays of all time. So I will report back if and when that happens.
Before we jump into the rants, I'm gonna call Alexis out on live here. We just got a text to the group chat saying, I discovered I don't know how to comment on YouTube. I love you, Alexis, so much. That's so on brand for Alexis.
Alexis, there should be a chat, bestie, on the YouTube stream, and if you're logged into your YouTube account, you should be able to comment.
Yeah, that's the question, though. I don't know if she has a YouTube account.
She can use ours. She can log into this account.
No, we can't.
Oh,
you're the only one. We just get to see the information. We don't get to do anything fancy with it.
Exactly.
So every time we mess something up, we have to be like, Liz, can you go fix it, please?
I didn't realize
we can add things to playlists, but not edit them.
That's so funny. And what have I done?
I have so often accidentally added something to the wrong playlist on the YouTube channel and texted Liz going, help fix it.
One time, I put the link to our show doc in the public comments, and I couldn't delete it.
If you ever thought a rebrand was easy, if you ever thought that like relaunching or doing a show at all was like a simple task that like we just have fun doing. Oh my God, we should do a video explaining just how much work has had to go into like all the things we do and how many times we have made silly little goofy mistakes. How do we feel about doing some rants? We feel like ranting this week?
I'm ready.
We're ready?
Liz,
Everyone want to give it...
Don't overthink it. We're going to do 6 minutes, not 8.
Okay, sure. All I know is I start. So it'll be fun.
And I end.
And so I can end. And I'll just stop the timer when we get to 6 minutes. Let's give a preview of what our rants are going to be so everyone can follow along. If it's your first time watching, we each have a rant of something that happened in pop culture over the past week. And the game is that we have to say it in 30-second intervals. So I'm going to speak for 30 seconds. And then Marissa's going to cut me off and speak. And then Sly will cut Marissa off and speak, and so on and so forth until we hit 6 minutes. It's chaotic and it's fun. We will see how well we do tonight. My rant this evening is about Harry Edward Stylish and As It Was. Marissa?
Okay. My rant is about Bridgerton. What else would you expect?
Sly?
My rant is about the structure of the Social Security Administration of the United States.
Yes! So, like, clearly we're all on the same vibe. Great.
Yeah, Sylvan.
I did have my rant ahead of time.
Have the rant ahead of time.
Sly decided this rant yesterday, and we were all very proud. And everyone give Sly a little round of applause.
Sly was the first person to announce their rant.
It's true. It's true. All right. With that said, I'll get the party started and hope my voice doesn't give out. Ready to cut me off, Marissa?
Yes.
There's a quote from The Office that Michael Scott says where he's like, I'm just going to start a sentence and see where it ends. And that's how I feel about my rant tonight, because we have to talk about Harry Styles and the new era and merch. There's so many memes going around TikTok right now about how Harry's team is going to butcher the merch for HS3, because in the past he's known to just take the promo photos and put them on merch with like an Arial font in a themed color. And I have many thoughts around all of this, and I'm going to get cut off, so I'm just going to pass it right to Marissa.
Okay, Bridgerton is not historically accurate, and it shouldn't be. So, I see some people in the chat who maybe aren't caught up on Bridgerton, and that's fine. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to talk about the general aesthetic of the show. So, Bridgerton is sort of like collectively understood in pop culture as a period piece, as a Regency drama, but it's not. Like, it's really not in any way at all. Why are we saying that it is?
Anybody who doesn't live in the United States, we have this wonderful government agency, I'm saying wonderful sarcastically, called the Social Security Administration. And this is where you prove that you're a human being that exists in this country. And the problem I am currently having with the Social Security Administration is none of their offices are open, even after a mask mandate has been
So we had some
lifted.
comments earlier tonight about how Blondie, aka Taylor Swift, dropped some new Evermore merch and how we're all losing our minds over it. I completely agree. Here's the thing. Taylor Swift is proving how to do the promo merch photo theme right. Taylor Swift's merch still has a lot to be said for. However, when we look at what Harry Styles has done in the past, it has always been subpar. But does Harry Styles really need to be anything but subpar to sell his merch? That's the real question, and the answer is a hard no.
Bridgerton is a fantasy. It is not trying to be historically accurate, and it shouldn't be. And we shouldn't be pretending like it is. The makeup design, the hair design, the costume design is not historically accurate, and that is okay. That's how I would prefer it to be. I want to look at pretty dresses and intricate hairstyles that are entirely anachronistic. I want to look at embroidery and jewels and like bedazzled situations that have no place in the Regency era. It's pretty.
So, at least in my state, the mask mandate lifted on the 14th, and the Social Security Administration still won't even open their offices to the public with a vaccine card and a mask. Like, they're just not open, period, unless you have an urgent appointment. And apparently, changing your legal name is not considered urgent enough to make a physical appointment with them. So I have to mail in
There
my
is
license.
greater political discourse here around like what artists are trying to sell their fans and the marked up prices they're selling for. But here's the point that I don't think we're considering. Y'all keep buying it. I keep buying it. Harry Styles is not the problem here. It's what we're agreeing to put our money into and how much we're willing to spend. We are active members of the problem. We're ranting and complaining about besties. So then the question becomes like, what do we do to stop the cycle?
So the thing about Bridgerton is that I don't care. Like it is a fantasy. It is not based in reality in like any way other than like it's set in London. Like you can I can't really point to any specific piece of its aesthetic and say that is based in reality. Because like, yes, do they borrow from Regency silhouettes? Sure. But they're not wearing Regency clothing.
So, like, I understand wanting to protect the people who are, are utilizing your resources, but when you make it absolutely impossible for people to live and exist and also use your services, you have a problem. And so, like, I understand needing to prove identity and not being able to accept photocopies of documents. That makes sense. But if you're going to require that level of information,
Y'all
open your
buy
offices.
anything with Harry Styles' face on it, okay? And by y'all, I mean me. Okay, let's talk about how I am an active contributor to this problem. 2 weeks ago, I spent $50 on a fine line vinyl. Why? Because I wanted to make sure I bought it during the fine line era. That's problematic fan behavior, okay? I bought a True People with Kindness sweater because it came out with a glittery version. The glitter came out in the first wash. I am still happy I spent $80 on that piece of shit. So if we want Harry to do some better merch, then we gotta stop buying it. And I honestly don't think that's possible for this era, so we'll put up with it.
So the bottom line is that I am not a dress historian. I am not a costumer. I am not a hair and makeup person. I'm just a person that appreciates all of those things individually. And so my issue is when people say that Bridgerton is historically accurate or is based in some sort of history. Like it's historically inspired, but it's a fantasy. And that's okay. And we should accept that and embrace that because it's pretty to look at. Thank you.
So, in conclusion, social services are the bottom priority for the entire country, and it sucks because they are the most needed and most important, and nobody ever supports them. And I get why the Social Security Administration are being little bitches, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm upset about it because it's negatively impacting my life right now, and I need them to fix it so I can go on with my life and be done with this bullshit.
Yes.
Listen, this is why we have a platform, right? To call it problematic behavior, is it not? So I think you're doing exactly what we designed the show to do.
I don't revolutionize the American social services system
Why not?
in one night.
We'll throw the after party for revolution. Is that not like just Hamilton? But
that's
fine.
Also Pride. Pride is right.
Hello.
Look at the way we rebranded the show. Like
we're ready.
Obsessed. Now, with this all being said, we've gotten it out of our system. So I think we're ready to fully transition into our Moon Knight conversation. Are we ready? We're all ready in the chat.
What if we do a 1-sentence summary without spoilers? And then once we get that, if you haven't seen it yet, leave. Go. We're going to go full spoilers.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to find Alexis's. Alexis sent us 4 pages of notes. Shout out Alexis, which I'm currently pulling up to make sure that we do not miss her thoughts in this conversation because she was way more articulate than me. So would someone else like to start our recap?
Sly, go.
Oh, okay.
Sly's good at this.
My non-spoiler opinions are I'm intrigued. I am cautiously optimistic, and I hope the things I have issues with get resolved or improved in the next episodes.
Okay.
Those are my thoughts.
Yep. My thoughts are I'm confused. I am beginning y'all know my process. If you're new here, I have a process where I go through like all the press for these shows. Like I do go quite extensive into figuring out their key messages and then trying to map them onto what actually happens in the show to figure out why they campaigned the way they did. So I've begun that process and it made me more confused. I'm feeling a little like slander on Maine tonight about it, which means like I'm ready to like not hold back my opinions. I'm ready to be wrong about it later and have to like not apologize, maybe be like, oh, you remember me like 2 weeks ago? She had no idea what she was talking about. And I'm feeling like I don't understand how they're going to accomplish everything they want to accomplish in such a short amount of time. So perhaps this is just the beginning of like an origin story as opposed to a total origin story for Moon Knight. Marissa?
I'm feeling like it was not made for me. Even though there are elements of it that should be very much my thing, it's not in general. And I was not excited going into it, and I'm not excited going out of the first episode.
You have not been turned around by episode 1.
Not yet.
Also important, and I think it's important to take inventory. Show of hands in the chat if you identify as an Oscar Isaac girly. Girly is a gender-inclusive term in this use case. I think I'm the only Oscar Isaac girly representing us on stage this evening. But if you're an Oscar Isaac girly, like, let me know in the chat, because that also is going to greatly influence pieces of this conversation.
Yes.
I think we need to start there. I feel like that is the starting point. They have brought Oscar Isaac into the MCU to play a hero from a background he does not represent. And there's problems with that that we do not have the time or capacity to unpack this evening, nor are we necessarily the people that have the context, the life experience to create adequate conversation around why this could be harmful and is harmful in its own way. So let's just start right off the bat by saying they have done a lot of great pieces to be respectful of and adequately and accurately represent Egyptian history and Egyptian culture in the show. The casting of Oscar Isaac is not a part of that conversation, in my opinion. With that on the table, he is the Moon Knight we have been given. So let's critique what he is bringing to the table. Something that's been really interesting to see happen in the press tour and then reflect back on the episode is his accent. And obviously in episode 1, we heard a lot of this British accent that he's putting on for a character. And again, I'm trying to be good with like how we talk about the spoilers for the show, so you can still enjoy this conversation if you want to go watch it later. So we heard a lot of this British accent, and there's a lot of like memes circulating the internet and a lot of conversation around how the British accent's just like not good. And we have heard Oscar Isaac do accents, so it's kind of confusing that the accent was not good. In the press tour, we are led to believe via interviews with the likes of Ali Plum, who we love on this show, that perhaps the accent's not supposed to be good, and that might be a reason we might find out why that is down the road in future episodes. However, I found it so distracting during this episode to have to listen to that accent and not understand the full context of like why it is the way it is. To me, it felt Oscar Isaac does such a good performance, and like if he's intentionally trying to make something bad, then like so be it. But it just took away from the entire like character that we were being introduced to. So perhaps I'll come around on that point when we understand more.
Deafing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the accent sounds like. I was just enjoying his physicality. I was enjoying,
So what did you think of his physicality?
I mean, we don't know much about this character, but the way he like embodied the character and his mannerisms, I thought was interesting. I don't know how I'll feel about his like entire portrayal once we have a more well-rounded story arc to base it off of. But I thought his physicality was very good. That he was very much embracing what it takes to play a character with the ID and represent specific alters, and that he gave, Steven a very distinct, mannerisms and style that I think will be really important and come into play later. So yeah, like I don't know what the accent sounded like. That's a hearing person problem.
Yeah. What I was going to say to that point, like specifically, I mean, you just said it, Sly, is that like the physicality of Steven is very specific. Like he's recognizable in a crowd, like it's consistent. And whether you like it or not, the accent is also very specific. And weirdly for me, I have a like twisted sense for accents. Like wigs and accents
Costumes.
I can recognize immediately. And so like the accent was really off-putting for me at the very beginning, but it weirdly like grew on me and I kind of accepted it at a point. So it wasn't like the jarring, like it didn't take me out of it. It wasn't the thing that took me out of it, I guess.
So what was the thing that took you out of it then? Was there something?
I don't know that there was anything in particular. I just didn't really care about the stakes or anything. I feel like I understood the beats that they were building to. And so the path they took to get there didn't really matter to me. If that makes sense.
I feel like this. Sorry. We know that there are people, reviewers, media people that got access to the first 4 episodes. There's a lot of people out there that have seen like the whole first arc of this show. And to me, it makes me curious why they wouldn't release the first 2 episodes at once. I feel like the first episode on its own had some stuff going on, but it really could have been complemented by just a little bit more. To me, it was like if I was not doing this show and I didn't have all the MCU content that we're doing and we, if we weren't invested in this as a community, I'm not sure if I would like stick with Moon Knight after watching just what we received from episode 1. So I'm curious to see why they didn't package this first episode with a second piece. Like perhaps there's something bigger coming in the next episode that it would have been too much to give us all at once.
That's funny because I was actually relieved that we only got 1 episode this week because I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this because I understand what they're trying to do and the emotions they're trying to evoke, and I don't think that what I was feeling watching this is what they wanted. But it was a lot for me to watch. Like that stress of losing time really got to me, and so that was a lot for me just watching, and I felt like this was just enough time that I could sit with it and be fine with it. But if I got another episode, I think it would be a little too much for me this week.
This is another interesting piece about the show is that it's horror, thriller, action. Like this is not Loki. This is not WandaVision. This is not Falcon with the Winter Soldier. It's character study in the horror thriller lens, which we're supposed to be also getting from Multiverse of Madness. So I feel like it's a bit of a warm up in terms of seeing how the MCU deals with this genre. And it's definitely a jarring twist. What do you think, Marissa?
I think generally the episode, like from a structural standpoint, was well built. Like it accomplished its goals. It hit its beats. It had like, twists and turns, climax, and denouement. That's a big writer's word for you. And like one of the last things I wrote was it was a well-structured episode, I guess, because like on the page, it was a well-structured episode. It was a strong episode for an episode format, I guess, but it wasn't a strong episode plot, like not plot-wise. That I guess that's not what I mean. I guess story-wise, like to me, I didn't feel pulled into the story from it, but like on the page, it was well done, if that makes sense. I feel like I just contradicted myself for about 3 minutes.
Well,
I want to quickly build on the horror thriller aspect of the show. One of the things that I'm not excited about is that I can't think of a single piece of media with a character with DID that wasn't horror based.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't appreciate that. So the fact that that's the genre they're choosing to tell this story through, I'm not a fan of. But we'll see how it plays out. Like, I'm trying not to make too many strong judgments based on this one episode, and I'm trying to just like let them tell a story and see how it goes. But that gives me pause.
So let's take this moment and talk about the other pieces of this that are giving us pause. Thank you for the beautiful transition slide. Couldn't have said it better myself. Something that really stuck out to me while I was watching, this was one of like the big sections of notes that I took, was I feel like Phase 4 has so much magic in it. Like there's magic all over the place in Phase 4. And Alexis very rightfully called out that there was a quote in the museum moment between those two characters where it was said like, oh, like there's chaos in you. And I feel like the lore of the MCU is starting to get confusing to me, because was that a way of saying there's chaos magic within you? Are they using chaos in the way of like the term and how a person is acting or what their energy is like feeling like? And I have this list. I'm gonna just rhyme it off for everyone of like all the different places we've seen magic so far in Phase 4. And I think this is conclusive, but I might be missing some. We have the magic that the Eternals are using. We have Wanda's magic, which I think that's chaos magic, is it not?
Yes.
Yes. We have Doctor Strange's magic, which is not chaos magic, correct?
Correct.
We have Asgardian magic, Loki. Now we have this, what I'm referring to as the ancient Egyptian magic, because I believe that's how they framed it in the episode. So I just have many thoughts around like, are these like the way that like people can speak different languages, like magic with many subcultures of magic? Are these magic that's like stemming from all these different sources? Like I have so many questions, and I would like someone at some point in Phase 4, Kevin Feige, if you're listening, this is your job. Explain to me where all of this magic is coming from and how it all either is coming from the same sources or different sources, and how that makes people different. Because if we're going into a world where magic is what we're fighting with and around, like we need a lot of context building to make that make sense. We're like far past super soldier serum makes strong and unable to refrigerate, so therefore we fight. Like we're in a whole other realm of stuff now, and I would like Professor Hulk to sit me down and go, all right, here's the whiteboard with every single kind of magic, let's walk through it.
The one type of magic we have yet to mention is the magic of Ta Lo from Shang-Chi.
Yes, I also had that thought. Yes.
Completely correct. See, I never think of that because I always think about how Shang-Chi was supposed to be the hero that's just a normal, he's a normal person, he's a normal guy, and yet there's so much magic in that movie that's like, okay, so he's a normal guy that understands, but it's like to fight against magic. I need a what if we explained magic in the MCU episode. That's what I need. If we're gonna do What If Season 2, let's do it right, Feige. That's my request to you.
My request to Kevin Feige is that I would like one of his many hats.
And we know people have the Moon Knight hats from the Moon Knight premiere, so like let's get some sent this way. JJ saying the soft magic system might be starting to backfire soon. Let's hear more reasons why. Marissa,
what is America Chavez's deal? I know she can like hop through
Captain
universes.
Marvel. I didn't even.
Does she have magic too, or is she just like a universe hopper?
I don't. It depends on how you define magic. It's
Yeah,
the real
see?
question.
It all
Soft
comes back to
magic is starting to
definitions,
backfire.
people. Yep. I just Googled it to see, but unfortunately, Alexis, who knows everything all of the time, is not here to fill us in and also does not know how to comment. So perhaps Alexis will send a text in the group chat if she's still
I had
listening.
so many times where there was something in this episode where I was like, that is so weird. That has to be something from the comics. Specifically, I'm talking about Walking on Glass. Because
Mm-hmm.
that was a strong start.
fascinating.
That was a strong start. And I was like, if this is just like something that they threw in for spice, this is going to be a weird show.
I haven't read all of the comics. I'll start with that. I read 2 or 3 runs of Midnight. But again, not all of them. And I do not remember anything about Walking on Glass. So
See, my hyper realist brain, when I saw that, I was like, oh, is that why he needs the cane? Because he's a faker? Because he puts glass in his shoes to like make it look like he can't walk properly? I don't know if that's true, but that's where my hyper realist brain went. I was like, there has to be an explanation for everything.
I'm just reading through Alexis's notes, and Alexis has some very well articulated notes, unlike me. But I'm going to hyper focus on one specific point in which she writes, "Chocolate and flowers, bestie went hard for a first date." And I would like to say, good for him for having. I mean, he missed the whole date. Not good for him, but good for him for like put on a suit. Even though he wasn't feeling confident, he was like, this is the bar. We're going for steak. I don't eat steak, but we're going for steak. I'm going to treat this date with respect. I love to see it. I loved it. To me, that was way more romantic than leaving all of your friends to go back in time to a woman to kiss her.
There it is! First time on the new show!
I'm just going through the notes. There's so much about this episode that we could dig into, but I feel like I'm going to open the floor to the conversation that we always seem to circle back to, which is accessibility. There's so much to say about accessibility and how this show specifically has a lot of problems.
There are 2 major things for me. I want to see if the rest of y'all agree. The first one is this show uses an egregious amount of shaky cam. And I understand that it's stylistic, but I was nauseous the entire episode. I felt like I was gonna throw up from the beginning to the end, and there were like brief moments of relief, but man, was there so much shaky cam. And the other one, I think Liz, you called this out too. Stop putting flashing lights in the most important moments of your show. Because I will look away from the screen and close my eyes until the flashing is done, and then I miss the entire fight scene.
If I have to miss a pivotal moment because of your inaccessible choices for the sake of style, then your style sucks. Period. Okay, the film bros are going to hate me for saying that, but luckily this is not a show for the film bros. This is a show for people that want to enjoy the media that they want to consume. And unfortunately, when you mask your reveals in strobe lights and shaky cam, it ruins what that moment could be for your entire audience. Because frankly, it's unnecessary. If you have to rely on those stylistic choices to build and create drama, then like I think you have some bigger problems you're trying to fulfill.
And can I say, as a person that does not have those accessibility needs, it wasn't that exciting. Like it was not. It was boring. Regardless of the stylistic choices, it didn't help anything. Personally, I believe.
My thing is, there were so many interesting little details that they included that were, the moments that make me excited to continue watching the show. Interesting use of framing, interesting use of reflections, flipping, the entire camera for like shots, like the way they played with the style was really cool, except for they relied so heavily on the strobe lights and the shaky cam, and they didn't need to. You could have done so much more interesting, dynamic, like compelling storytelling with your shot composition without making your show inaccessible.
Period. I know I'm sick already. We're one episode into Moon Knight, and I'm already sick of having to. Do you want to know what I have to do to watch this show, knowing that these moments are coming? I keep my sunglasses beside me in my own home, put my sunglasses on, so that when they start with no warning, obviously, they're not going to say, oh, the strobe lights are about to start. I don't immediately get triggered into a migraine. And then I have to physically cover my eyes with my hands and get my partner to dictate to me what's happening. So poor guy is trying to watch the show and enjoy it himself and go, okay, so this is happening. And and I'm like, what? And he's like, pause it. And it takes us forever to get through an episode because he's trying to enjoy it himself and explain to me what's happening. So he's very generous to do it, but it ruins his experience too. So it's also like accessibility allies, in my house specifically, my accessibility allies, like, man, I love explaining it to you, but damn, I want to know what's about to happen next. So like, can you figure it out in your own mind so we can keep going? And I just think that sucks for everyone.
I agree with JJ too, that it was like a cheap choice. It was like, this is the style we're using, so this is what we have to put in, you know?
And frankly, like I think about WandaVision and like those super intense moments in WandaVision and in the last episode, even like second last episode, where they used special effects and they used lighting to make it so dramatic and build those emotions. It was still in a way that I could watch it. Like they still use those elements. Like we've seen this in Marvel movies. Like we know that they can do it. We know that there are ways they can stay within style and make choices that are a little bit easier on the viewing experience. So I'm just like, all right, you want to go make your big bold choices and then like immediately eliminate a whole segment of viewers. Like that's a choice on you. But I'm not going to be happy about it. And that's about as far as my discourse can go with my current.
My last point is, when you are talking about and thinking about inclusive design, it gives you so much opportunity to play and explore and come up with really interesting and creative solutions that make your project or your story better. So why would you as a creator choose to kind of rely on these crutches, these, oh, it's a dramatic moment with mirrors, we're going to throw in some flashing lights to add to the suspense? That's not interesting, that's not compelling, and you can do so much more if you brainstorm and think of creative solutions to build that emotion you want without relying on the cheap, regular, typical things you would expect from those moments.
Tea. Mic drop. We have a few more minutes and we have so many more notes from this episode, so I'm going to pass it to Marissa first. Marissa, is there any other pieces from your notes that you want to highlight before we move on?
This is not a discussion point, but I was really frustrated that the documentary mispronounced Neanderthal. A documentary would pronounce it Neanderthal, not Neanderthal. That just really bothered me. I was like, that took me out of it more than the accent.
Talk your shit.
Yeah.
What else?
Before we get into, there's a whole piece I want to discuss about the marketing and the promo and the press tour. So maybe we'll leave that for a moment. But anything else from the episode specifically that you want to highlight?
Well, I said that before I watched the episode, I was going to make a list of all the things I knew about it going in and all the things I knew about it going out. And I did not learn anything. Before I wrote down what I knew about every character. So I said Mark Spector is a Jewish guy from Chicago. He's the son of a rabbi, and he's maybe dark ops. I got
Special
that part
ops,
wrong,
yeah.
but I was close. Stephen Grant is British. British Museum. That's a bullet point. Actually, it's British Museum ? Egypt ? Yep, I was right.
That was the episode. That was pretty much
and
it.
then I wrote, there's some girl who's been in like none of the promos, which we can discuss in the marketing. Again, learned nothing about the girl, but there is some girl. And Ethan Hawke is there. That was also right. So I knew all of it.
Sly?
So I watched this in Discord with Frank and Mario, and I'm pretty sure that's why I enjoyed the episode as much as I did, because their banter and their running commentary greatly contributed to me having a positive experience with this first episode. And because of that, we got to catch some very interesting details. Frank noticed that on his like jacket there was like light sand that would not fit anywhere in his area that he had been, so he must have been somewhere sandy before he woke up, which was a very interesting observation. And then we talked about the postcards from his mom, right, are the same ones in the gift shop. So that's interesting. What's going on with that? Are they from Mark? Are they a communication tool? What do they say? I want to know more. Tell me more about the postcards. Okay, you have a problem if from the first episode, I'm most excited about the postcards. I've been thinking about them for days. The rest of the story, tell me about the postcards.
I will say Alexis has the same notes and also adds that this whole mother piece might just be a conspiracy. Like, is the mom even real? Is she alive? Is she around? Or is he calling some like is it a tool that is being used for him to actually talk to himself? Or anyway, lots of questions around the mother and the postcards.
I was also
point with the penguin documentary.
Penguins.
And then so I, from what I read from the comics, I either love them or I hate them. There's no in between. I don't feel neutrally about this character and how he's portrayed, so I'm curious to see how I feel about the show. Hopefully I enjoy it. I don't have strong hopes. And the final point I want to leave you all with is they had 1,000,001 Egyptian consultants for the show. They named so many Egyptian consultants for modern Egypt, for ancient Egypt, for all of these different aspects. They had a singular consultant for the DIDS aspect, and it was an academic, not a person with lived experience, which, it's important to have somebody who understands the academic sides of these topics, but it's also important to consult people who have real lived experiences. And from the production briefing, they did not mention any Jewish consultants at all in the entire document. What's going on with that? Why can you hire 1,000,001? That's a grossly overestimated number, but a lot of Egyptian consultants, and then kind of brush off all the other aspects of this character. What are you doing here?
It's really interesting to me because you hit the nail on the head, right? With how if you want to make the point that you're doing representation right, if right's even a word you can use here, or that you care a lot about respecting and representing a culture accurately, and then you only take that in one of the many cultural capacities a show is speaking to, I feel like it opens so many doors for questions that Marvel is just not going to get asked. Like they do have a segment in the production brief about mental health and the role of mental health and the history of mental health with this character in the comics, and they do outline it pretty extensively, but it's still to your point of how how can you make
It
the
was
choice to
half
weigh
the
one
length
culture over another?
of the Egypt section. Half.
Yeah. And I also I've not gone deep on the press tour for this, but they love to talk about the accurate representations of Egypt. They love to talk about how they have an Egyptian director, which they rightly should.
Mhm.
And, you know, all of the work they did to accurately represent Egyptian culture. Not a mention of DID, even as a concept, as it relates to the character or the show, or, you know, as a thing that it is at all.
Mhm.
So perhaps we'll see that in episode 2. Like that would be one thing that I'm not gonna rake them over the coals for that yet, because I'm hoping that there will be time and space for that to come in. I do want to just say, someone in the comments has pointed out that it's been said there is Jewish consultation on the show. When we were reviewing the production brief, I just went through it again. So there's a 31-page production brief that Marvel's put out. You can look this up on the Marvel website, where they outline like basically all of their PR points for the show. They talk about all the consultants they've brought on, the actors. It's a pretty extensive look at how they built this. And the word Jewish is not mentioned once in the document. The word Jew is not mentioned once in the document. The word rabbi is not mentioned once in the document. So if they had consultation on the show, does not appear in the production brief. However, exactly as Sly mentioned, the section that they have regarding mental health is called Moon Knight and Mental Health, and it's about a little under a page, versus the section on Egyptian culture. I'm trying to find it here. It's long, and it's also throughout every section. They have a section around Egyptian culture. I think it's the making of Moon Knight, which is 1, 2, 3. It's many pages long, this brief, so you can go look it up if you'd like to read more about that. We know Marvel still has a long way to go. We are one of those shows that will hold Marvel accountable to what it's doing right and doing wrong. It will be interesting to see how all these cultures come into play in future episodes. And with that, I do want to segue to how interesting the press is for this show, because there's so much to say. I'm going to make a video about how I'm so fascinated by the train wreck scenario that everyone hates finding themselves in, of when you're trying to promote a project that you can't reveal anything about. It's the same pigeonhole that Tom Holland found himself in going into No Way Home. The same place Andrew Garfield was in going into No Way Home. Spoilers for No Way Home, but it's out now, so I think we can. But
they actually had talking points for No Way Home.
Correct.
I haven't heard a single talking point for the show.
The talking
we
points
have a single actor.
The talking
point is Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac is here.
Oscar Isaac's in the MCU, and that's all you need to know.
It's truly a catastrophe. They have exactly one story that they're telling. Who can tell me? Let me be my best professor self. Who in the class can share the one story we're hearing on the press tour? Sly.
This is an origin story to the likes of Iron Man, and it's played by Oscar Isaac.
Exactly. It is this parallel to Iron Man, in which they are trying to tell us that we have not seen a character study like this since the original Iron Man, which I personally think is quite offensive to how Iron Man, Captain America, First Avenger, and Thor all were character studies in their own way. I think what they're trying to fulfill, and Shang-Chi, yes, thank you, very rightfully so, in which during that press tour, they also used Iron Man as a pillar of promoting that movie.
But now they're walking that back and saying, this is the best character study since Iron Man 1.
And I feel like
the other thing that I've seen is a couple, very briefly, but there have been a couple points about this being the first character with mental illness in the MCU.
All of TikTok would disagree with that statement.
Right? I'm like, okay, you have canonical panic attacks in Tony Stark. You have canonical suicidal ideation in Bruce Banner. You have
and Bucky Barnes.
And you know, and all of these characters have trauma. All of these characters have different mental health struggles. Like, I dare you to find a single character in the MCU that isn't mentally ill. And you're trying to say this is the first? What?
Like, I will give them maybe the first character that, you know, puts a name to a disorder. But
we haven't seen that yet. Not the first.
But there's like 3 episodes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier with Bucky sitting in a therapy office. Like, what is that if not mental health?
Yep. And not to mention, going back to WandaVision, like, she goes, that whole show is about mental health. That's an entire show about grief. That's an entire show about mental well-being.
About disassociation even. Like, she's disassociating from the world around her. Yeah, it's inspired by magic, but like, still, like, we've already seen all of these themes. Don't call it the first.
It's not the first. It is, frankly, that's upsetting. I think I understand why they're going with this strategy, and JJ puts it very well. Imagine having every resource at your disposal, and this is what you're going with. I think that they know that there are many corners that they could get trapped into with this show, of which we have already put them in every corner this evening, with the way that they're handling and not handling cultures, the way they're handling and not handling mental health and mental illness, the way they're handling and not handling accessibility, the way we've barely met any other characters other than Oscar Isaac. Okay. So I think I understand why this is the strategy. They're trying to say, if you are not following the MCU, we're trying to bring in new viewers, right? Because Marvel fans are going to watch this regardless, so we don't need to talk to them. We're talking about everybody else that exists. We can tell you 2 things that matter to you. Oscar Isaac, you liked when he, nuzzled into Jessica Chastain, but we got him in this. Who knows what'll happen, because we won't tell you anything about the plot, so perhaps he'll do the same. And we can tell you, remember that movie Iron Man?
Everybody's hero.
Everyone's hero, Tony Stark. Well, if you liked him, you're going to love Oscar Isaac. Not the character names, which they barely say in the press tour, but you're gonna like Oscar Isaac.
I've seen several like lower thirds of Oscar Isaac on this press tour with completely different character names.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just Moon Knight. Sometimes it's just Mark Spector. Sometimes it's Stephen Grant, Mark Spector, Moon Knight, Stephen Grant, Mark Spector. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
That's not clear either.
Alexis made a lovely point in our messages that WandaVision is a show about women's grief, so it doesn't count.
Of course, that's not mental health. That's just a crazy lady.
Right.
That's just a crazy lady. She's just too emotional.
Let's take that energy just very quickly as a group. Let's collectively hold space for Agatha All Along taking home a Grammy tomorrow. Can everyone summon that chaos magic energy and send it that we're finally going to get?
Honestly, I really like her chances.
Yes, I completely agree. Throw a little dancing emoji in the chat to help us manifest that energy out to the Grammys tomorrow. Yes, but this PR tour is a disaster. We will talk more about it on TikTok throughout the next week now that I have my voice back. There's also one more story that they're using, which I think is very vague and interesting, about a coffee shop with Ethan Hawke and Oscar Isaac. And it's not a good story, and yet it's the only story they're running with right now. So we shall see what happens. And perhaps once we get a few more episodes out, we'll get this second round of press that always seems to happen with Marvel, where they're like, okay, now that people know things, go back and do it all again and talk about the plot and the characters. So if and when that happens, which I'm assuming it will after episode 4, since that's what the press has already been briefed and interviewed them around, we can talk about all this again and hopefully have some lighter opinions, or perhaps more giving opinions, if that's the position we find ourselves in. Or we'll still be unforgiving and cold about this whole scenario, in which case you'll get that unfiltered reaction as well.
Of all the characters we've seen so far, if we got an interview with one of the actors, who would you want it to be? Because I want the the bitchy manager lady
Oh, I
at
love her.
the museum. I hated her so much, but she was so well done. I want to interview that actor. Let's get her on the show.
I have a question that I have not researched at all. Is this the same museum from Black Panther? When they steal, when I'm sorry, I my brain is
I
like.
think it's the same museum
Is it
from
the
both
British
Black
Museum?
Panther and the Eternals. I think it's the British Museum of Natural History.
Okay,
Interesting.
then perhaps this museum is the new like Stark Tower of Phase 4. I want to interview anyone and everyone involved in this museum situation. Just get some
Speaking
answers.
of Stark Tower, I have a bone to pick with Tom Holland. He said in No Way Home press that he knew who bought Avengers Tower, and he never told us, and it was not in the movie.
Rude.
Sorry, Sly.
I do have a friend who's currently in London working at a museum. I never remember which one. But if it's the same museum, I might be like, hey, come talk about the museum.
Honestly, I would welcome it. I would ask so many questions. A
Yeah.
great question from JJ. And maybe we'll end our Moon Knight conversation on this note. Is anyone else feeling oversaturated and that's affecting your Moon Knight opinion?
I don't know that it's oversaturated, but there are maybe that's what it is. But there are other things that I'm much more interested in that I feel like I'm kind of required to be watching Moon Knight. It's not what I want to be watching, if that makes sense. Like, I am very excited for Multiverse of Madness. Give me all the Wanda. Yum, yum, yum. I am loving Bridgerton. I'm very into that right now, as you can tell from this episode. There's so much happening in pop culture that, like, yeah, Moon Knight is not where I feel like if we were in a desert like we were before WandaVision,
I was gonna say a desert like Dune in the desert with like Dune.
We're not there yet. That's coming later.
Quit.
It's in you. This is not your time to talk about Dune yet.
Listen, I've been so good. I've been so good this whole episode, not making it about Dune every 2 minutes. Okay.
But yeah, I think if we were sort of desperate for it, I would be a bit more like intrigued and be more into the theories and everything. So yeah, I think that is part of it.
Sly, how are you feeling?
I don't feel oversaturated, mostly because I spent so long only consuming Marvel content in a desperate attempt to catch up with all of the shows. And I spent so long watching all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all of the Hulu shows. I watched Inhumans. And so like I went through it. I did my due diligence over the past year to now be able to consider myself like a Marvel fan, right? So like now that I'm watching with everybody else and feel like all caught up on everything, I don't feel the oversaturation.
It's fresh. This is a fresh moment for you.
Yeah, like it's not the first thing I've experienced live. It's not the first thing like that I get to experience as a whole as like a first Marvel experience. But it's the first time I'm like, yeah, I know all the context. I know what's up. I understand fandom. I'm here. So maybe that is affecting my opinion. But I don't think it's because there's so much other things that have been coming out recently, because I watched 10 years of history in a year. Like, so I don't think that's a part of it for me.
I think for me, I'm not oversaturated, but I've been almost, I can't think of the right word for how I felt going into Moon Knight, but I think I'm preemptively emotionally exhausted. Like I've been very stressed and holding a lot of stress about the series because the second it was announced, like not even before they attached Oscar Isaac to it, it was all the questions were coming up about around like, will it do its culture's justice? Not just Egyptian culture, not just the DID culture, not just Jewish culture? Will it do all of these cultures justice? And if not, like, what's going to get sacrificed or what will get the short end of the stick? And I'm kind of sick of having that conversation and sick of that being the reality of these Marvel projects. I would love to have a project announced and just feel confident, like, oh, WandaVision season 2, well, they did grief so well in season 1. I'm so excited to see like what they'll do next with it. Or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Captain America and the Winter Soldier season 2. Well, we got this from season 1. So hopefully, you know, they'll play into this in season 2 or be able to. And I don't think that it has to do with the fact that Moon Knight is new. But what I do think it has to do with is the fact that in every project we've ever seen from Marvel, including the Phase 4 projects, something has gotten the short end of the stick every time. And there's just so much that this show has the potential to do well that I'm sick of not being confident about it. And now we're in this moment. And I turned on episode 1 and I was like, I cannot wait to see what we don't see.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a little tired.
That's definitely true. I was very stressed watching the first episode, not because of the story or what was happening on screen, but because I was bracing myself for something inappropriate to happen on screen. So I was just like nervous the whole time.
I'm not a huge fan of how they're portraying the dissociative moments, the switching. I mean, I obviously have no position to say like it's good or bad, and I understand that you can't have like your character on screen disassociating for 5 minutes while a switch happens, right? Like that's not conducive to storytelling. But it just, the way it's acted and the way it's shot, I'm not a huge fan of, and that gives me pause for the rest of the show. But yeah, I was right there with you, bracing for something egregious to happen.
I will say, like, we will have more extensive conversation on this in the coming weeks, especially once Alexis is back. And Alexis does have some different perspective and expertise to actually bring to the conversation around DID and around some of the research behind this show, not just the comics. But Alexis knows a lot about some of these pieces. So we're very excited to dig more into this over the coming weeks and seeing how the show unfolds. I don't want to just leave this all on our very hesitant note. I do think there's one thing that the show did really well, which is it was funny. I found myself laughing out loud, LOLing many times watching this, especially when Stephen says, oh, that's actually crushing to hear. That's my exact kind of dry humor. I was having a grand time. I had to pause it, actually, when that line was
sort
said.
of pathetic Stephen at work was very funny. Unfortunately,
it made me very sad.
I know
it hit a little too close to home. I was like, "Oh, baby, you're autistic coded. I'm so sorry."
I think it's Marvel. Sometimes I feel like the humor is there for the sake of like having some levity to moments, if that's the right word, or like just providing some kind of emotional breathing room. And I do like that they're establishing that there is a little bit of like humor in who Steven is as a person and like his like ability to be warm and provide us space to connect with him on that level. Like I do like that they did that in episode 1, and I hope it seems like from the press, it seems like from the way they're talking about Steven, we're going to see more of that headed into future episodes. But I really did appreciate that. And I think that, like you said at the beginning slide, the physicality I thought was very intentional, and in times it did add to the humor of a moment, and I thought that was kind of interesting as well, because we don't always get like the kind of gawky geeky guys in the MCU. We get like the super soldiers, so it's kind of cool to see something a little bit different.
I want to address JJ's comment about the living statue. I loved the statue, man. I love that so much. Bring them back for every single project. Make this the new Stan Lee cameo. Give me a living statue cameo in every single MCU project from here on forward. It will make my life. I ask a lot of Marvel, but like this one's doable. I think you can reasonably achieve this. Give me a living statue in every single project.
Will you take a floppy inflatable man instead?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Either or.
I am gonna speak for Alexis for a moment. Going way back to Sly's question around who would you interview? Alexis wants to say the fish. Someone should interview the fishes.
Which
fishies.
one?
Yeah, great question. And I feel like this opens the door again to Alexis's overarching point of the show, which is men should have pets. Everyone should have pets. Steven's got a fish. It builds the case for Alpine in the MCU. So please bring us Alpine in the MCU. If we've seen multiple fishes from Moon Knight, it's just adding to the case to build. We've even had our own version of Alpine in a party hat drafted as the new logo for the show. I'll pull it up a little bit bigger for everyone to see. So I'm really getting tired of the excuses that we can't. Oh, it's not. It's actually smaller, but Alpine. Let's make it happen. Marvel. Come on, Feige. Let's make it happen.
Everybody in the Disney Plus shows are getting pets, except Bucky. Just saying.
We would like to see it. We would love to see some Alpine in Phase 4. And with that, let's move into our last segment of the show. Excuse me, called our Under the Radar section, where we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the other pieces of media we were watching this week, maybe something that flew under your radar this week, and giving y'all something to go watch this week. So, Marissa, do you want to start with what are you watching? What are you recommending out to people this week?
I mentioned it a little bit at the start, but I would definitely recommend the Olivia Rodrigo Driving Home to You sour film. It's on Disney Plus. It is really, really, really good. The Grammys are tomorrow. And I feel like, all of the post-Oscars situation that happened sort of distracted from the fact that the Grammys are only a week later. So we've mentioned it a few times on the show tonight.
It's also the Spirit Awards right now, right?
The Independent Spirit Awards already happened. It already happened.
I'm losing days. Don't mind me.
The Juno Awards are still happening. Those are soon.
Yeah, the Junos are coming.
All of the awards are happening. It's awards
season.
It's
award season. But specifically with the Grammys, because I've been watching Bridgerton, I've been thinking a lot about the unofficial Bridgerton musical from Barlow and Bear, which is nominated for a Grammy for musical theater album. It is so good. I listened to it when it came out. It had been a long time since I had seen Bridgerton at that point. And now that I am rewatching the show, I'm noticing the moments in the score. I'm going to keep talking, pretend like Liz didn't disappear. I'm noticing the moments in the score that are taken and weaved in through the musical. And honestly, JJ, I agree with you because there's not a lot of competition. Let's be real. Most of the nominees this year are they're COVID musicals. So it's kind of it's a weird year for music sort of in general because everything was basically built in lockdown. But it's so smart and it's so good. And I also want to say on a previous Under the Radar, I talked about Ariana DeBose and how I didn't believe she was getting the attention she deserved. And she just won the Oscar for supporting actress in West Side Story. And I believe the exact words I said was, I don't know, I just feel like Ariana DeBose should be getting more attention. And I'm happy to say that she is. So what are you recommending, Sly? What's under your radar?
I wanted to have a quick chat with y'all about the state of conferences and live shows. So if you did not hear this week, E3, which is the yearly games industry trade show for 2022 got canceled both in live and digital format. And so E3 is usually a big deal. It's been going for 25 plus years. In 2020 it got completely canceled. 2021 we got a digital live show right? And then this year they were planning on another digital show and they just came out and outright canceled it. Are we feeling like conferences in general, trade shows, industry events are going the way of the grave? Or is this more reflective of more general big problems with ESA, which is the organization that throws E3? Like, how are we feeling about the state of live shows in a COVID world? Liz.
Thanks. What a great question. So I think about this every day. Why, you may ask? Because I am a live show producer. This is what I do. It's what I think about all the time. And it's really interesting to see like what's happening, because there's kind of like this convergence point that we've hit where there was all this excitement and innovation in the live show space that's been happening and is still happening. And it's a very exciting time to be in the industry and see how far it's been pushed in a very short amount of time to try and help communities that have benefited from it during COVID. And then there's like this other point of people wanting to go back to the status quo of live shows more and more and more and more and more. And that desire building as we get pieces and then we lose pieces and then we get pieces back and we lose pieces again because of just the ebbs and flows of the pandemic. So it's kind of converging at this point of mass innovation in digital spaces, mass desire to go back to in-person spaces, and companies coming up the middle of both. I keep losing myself in this background. Companies having to come up the middle of both to say, who do we cater to? Do we innovate where we know we can and stick with these options that we know will be sustainable? Or do we try and revert back and either deal with the consequences or have a rain plan? And I think that this is one of the first major players that is crumbling because of this convergence that's happening. And it's really unfortunate, but I think it was always going to be one of the industries that was the hardest hit. And I think for a very interesting reason. And I think this is a very unpopular opinion, but this is the space to say it, so I'm going to say it. Specifically with E3, and I've always kind of, I think if you follow E3, if you follow this space, it's really interesting to see the companies that are in the digital space, right? So I'm thinking of the Streamy Awards. I'm thinking E3. I'm thinking even the Disney Plus conference that happens, where they reveal all. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. These are all live shows that we would consider to be in this digital sphere, right? Versus the Oscars and the Tonys and these pieces of media that come from kind of the pre-pandemic style of media, right? So in theory, E3 should have been at the top of figuring all of this out. But what they fight for is acceptance from that original space that never has to fight for their space in the conversation. So in attempting to be this other mainstream media, they actually lost in this curve of innovation all that they could do, which is why I think they've found themselves.
And we do have a great point in the chat talking about, so when you think of E3, you think of the big showcases. You think of Microsoft, you think of Sony, you think of Nintendo, you think of Bethesda. But now we see, Microsoft acquiring Bethesda, so they're doing one show together. And Sony saying, we're not going to do E3, we're going to throw our own state of play. Nintendo has their directs, they're doing weird things with the mini directs, whatever. Nintendo's always doing weird things. But all these big conferences that we would normally see at E3, these companies are already doing their own shows. PAX, again, I've worked for PAX, so I'm putting that out there. PAX is still going strong, doing their thing. We are losing PAX South, which was very sad. They're just not doing a show in Texas anymore. But we still have West and East and Australia going strong. So PAX is fine. They're doing their thing. But yeah, we're seeing all these major contributors doing their own shows, and even the indies, like you have Annapurna Collective doing their own live shows. And so, yeah, that's a good point that usually E3 is the week where this entire industry comes together, and we're seeing more separation and smaller showcases over the course of the year. I just thought it was an interesting conversation for the general like field of how we're doing in-person versus streamed events, and I'm very happy Liz has all your expert to share with us.
It's
think
also
Go ahead.
well, it's just also interesting to compare like industry events to fandom events because like fandom conferences are popping off. Like
That was
VidCon is coming back. WonderCon is right now. We had C2E2 in Chicago. Like New York Comic Con was back. Like fandom spaces are alive and kicking.
E3 used to be a press only event, and in the past like I guess now like 3 to 5 years they started to try to attempt to be a fan event as well, and it just was not working for him. So yeah, it's interesting trying to convert to a fan show while still being a trade show. It was not the strongest move for them there.
There's a very interesting conversation that's happening right now that connects to this that I'm going to offer you the beginning pieces of, and then if you're interested, you can go take it away and research on your own, and then DM me on Instagram. We can talk more about it. It relates to like the idea of what is the role of a live show, right? And how do we define a live show now? And it has to do with streaming and how streaming has impacted like what we would call these traditional media models where, think like 10 years ago, even probably now, like my sense of 10 years is off, but there, those points in time, like when Glee was on TV, where you would have to tune in for the new episode of Glee every week on cable television if you wanted to watch Glee. And if you did not have cable television, you were not watching Glee live that week. Like it would take a day. If you're in Canada, sometimes it would take 2 days for it to come onto like a streaming provider for you to watch, right? And now something that's interesting that specifically we're seeing with the Marvel shows, but Marvel's certainly not the first to experiment with this, is bringing that model back, but on streaming platforms. Because on streaming platforms, there was this instant gratification of I can watch an entire season in one sitting. And now we're seeing like, we're going full circle back to that trend of we have to wait for a new episode every week. And that's what all the Marvel shows have done, right? So it's interesting to see how like this old media, new media convergence is really affecting like all of what we're consuming and how we're seeing old models come back in fashion. These new models kind of taking the backseat of like releasing an entire season at once is like, Bridgerton decided to do it. They're only going to have the narrative now for 2 weeks before another show starts. Like we're going to talk about Moon Knight for the next 2 months because they're dripping out these episodes week by week. And how is that going to affect the shows that we love and the movies that we love moving forward? I think it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation. And there's also space in this conversation to talk about shows like this. What you're watching is a fully produced live show and how this type of show differs from obviously what you get from a streaming platform dictates a show to be. So yeah, it's all very interesting. There's so much conversation we can have on this, and I will probably just make a whole bunch of videos on TikTok about it. I like this comment from JJ. COVID did help fandom spaces become more mainstream as well. Absolutely. 1,000%. And I think that being one of the first big in-person forces to come back was actually a way of asserting the dominance of fan culture and mainstream culture, because it was one of those first spaces to come back with mass turnout and mass financial success for investors.
Yeah, for sure. Fun conversations you get when you throw 3 comms people on a
3 comms people.
We need an animation that's like 3 comms people and a comms support person, because as we always say, comms
Alexis
is the
most important part,
and Alexis is the most important part.
It's so true. Like, no matter how talented a comms team is, the emotional support person is truly the like cornerstone of all good comms production.
We could spend hours trying to write one sentence, and Alexis would be like, "That makes no sense to me," and then we would be like, "Great, We have to start over.
And we're grateful for it because better
Absolutely.
Alexis come in and cut us off before we release it to everybody. I want to completely sidetrack. I'll do my under the radar segment in a moment and then we'll close the show. But I want to bring up this amazing point from JJ, which says fanon over canon. And I feel like we've been having this conversation so much in the group chats and the DMs over the past few weeks around the role of like fanon and how fanon is often better than canon. Any thoughts we want to share on this before I give my under the radar piece?
The problem with comparing the two is canon, a canonical story sets out to tell one very specific story crafted in a very specific way for a very specific medium. And that has power and importance and a place and a time and is completely necessary, right? We take canon, and without a canonical story, you don't have fanon. Like, it just doesn't exist. Fanon has the opportunity to take one story and tell it 500 different ways. And that's what makes it so compelling and so interesting and so fun, is that you have the opportunity to explore all of these aspects and all of these different through lines that may be presented but never resolved. And it gives you an opportunity. You could take a single scene from canon and read 500 fics about that one scene, and every single one is going to have a different takeaway, a different character arc, a different perspective on the aspects of the scene, which is so important when talking about crafting story and crafting narrative, and is really interesting. But none of that exists without canon. And so yes, fanon is always better, and it was always more developed because it takes all the problems with canon and gives you an alternative. So they can't exist one without the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Fanon is so much fun because, you know, it's like it's a community discussion. Like, it's taking an existing property and talking about it, where you're having a conversation with this text, essentially. My issue sometimes with fanon is when it becomes a so commonly held belief that it is accepted as canon, and people don't actually know the canon, and then we have to be the people to say that's actually not true, and it's going to be damaging if you carry that assumption going forward.
This is my 911 reference for the podcast. Christopher Diaz 0 times in canon calls Evan Buckley Bucky. 0 times does this happen in canon, and fandom has decided it's a thing. I don't know why. It's always Buck or his Buck. It is not Bucky in canon, but fandom has decided that's a thing. And like, if that's the character choice you're making for your story, give me a good reason. Make an argument for it. If you want to tell me that your Christopher calls Bucky, give me an explanation, defend it, and I will accept it. I will buy that as part of your canonical character. But you gotta give me evidence.
Yep. The specific example I'm thinking of is the Bucky fish jokes from What If, when people came out fiercely that Bucky Barnes worked on the docks, so that's why he makes fish jokes, when he never worked on the docks in canon, in comics or in the MCU. So, but I will say, JJ, I feel very strongly about the Marauders, because what do we have in canon for them?
Very little.
Obviously,
shout out the Marauders EP that came out this week, and I'm trying to find it. What is it called? It's called Broken Bodies, Broken Hearts by Chloe Amend. She's a TikToker who made a 5-song EP about the Marauders, and it is excellent. It is excellent music. It is beautiful lyricism. It is stunning beginning to end, 5 songs. And like long songs. The shortest song is 3 minutes and 21 seconds, and the longest song is almost 6 minutes long.
I can't believe, number 1, I didn't know about this already, and number 2, that you didn't alert me to it immediately.
I thought I DM'd it to you on Instagram, so I apologize. Nope. I'm sharing the link in the chat.
Never heard of that before.
Go listen on Spotify. I've sent it in the comments, so you can all go listen after the show. It's very good. We'll do a listening party for it on Stationhead at some point.
I googled just broken bodies, broken hearts, and one of the top results was AO3.
Yeah.
Important commentary from Alexis. I feel like we need a banner every time we're speaking on behalf of Alexis here. Alexis says, "I'm sorry, never has Goran Visnik said Draga on screen, but it's absolutely canon that every one of his characters use it." Does that comment make sense to you, Sly?
It's a Croatian word that's like my darling or something, like darling, something along those lines, or my love. I don't know. It's a Croatian word. The actor is Croatian.
Okay,
it just
thank
happens
you. Yep.
in all of the stories about his characters.
I don't remember everything on the bingo card, but that is a timeless and an ER reference. If you have those faces.
Also Electra. Shout out to Electra.
Oh, and Electra!
I'm obsessed. Okay, I'm gonna give my under the radar with that in mind.
We're gonna make a hard left
turn again.
I need to read Alexis's follow-up from the group chat.
Go for it. I talked about fanon and canon here. Go for it, Sly. You read that comment.
Alexis immediately texts us after we start that conversation saying, "Not Liz asking my husband to translate."
The perfect example of fanon versus canon. If you understand that, let us know right now in the comments. And if you don't, we will have a conversation next week when Alexis is here to fill all y'all in on the backstory that has evolved. The fanon backstory that has evolved.
That is fanon. Oh my god.
That is fanon.
We have our own fanon.
No,
we're fueling Alexis's fears. We're fueling Alexis's fears. We can't talk about ourselves in fanon.
Okay, hard left, hard left. Let me be insufferable. I've waited. According to when we start this, we get a countdown like on our screen telling us how long we've been live for. I've been waiting an hour and 42 minutes to talk about Dune. Time for Liz to be insufferable. It's Liz's insufferable moment of the week. Dune.
Can we get
swept.
This is a Liz Dune rant alert.
Dune swept the Oscars. Dune swept the Oscars. I would like everyone to tell me I was right because I was right and I love being right and I love when you tell me I'm right. I'm also still sick. It's taking way too much energy for me, but I literally lost my voice. I could not physically talk about this for days. So now I am telling all of you, if you did not know, Dune swept, okay? Dune is a great movie if you have not seen it. Shout out Oscar Isaac. Shout out Timothée Chalamet. Shout out Zendaya, 7 minutes. We love to see it. Hans Zimmer, we loved the music. It's so good. It's such a good movie. I will be screaming about it forever. I'm so happy. I actually, because I thought I was a good moviegoer, and I actually gave some of on my bingo card some of my predictions to Power of the Dog. I thought they'd get a handful, and Dune swept 6, and I love to see it. So there, finally, I've said it. It's done. Let's talk about HS3. Okay, where are the Harrys? No, the Dune rant is done, but I do appreciate the effort. Try again next time.
I'm not as proficient as Elizabeth.
We're getting there, though, and I appreciate it. Okay, JJ's coming for me in the comments here, so
Thank you.
Right, back to Dune. I did not like Timothée Chalamet's outfit at the Oscars. Wrong. Okay, you know what?
Thank you, JJ. Thank you for having my back on
Harry
this.
Styles did do it first. If you go on Twitter, you can see the side-by-side. Harry did do this literal exact outfit on tour. Sparkly black blazer, no shirt underneath, silver jewelry. Like, it's been done, okay? But if Timothée did not wear that outfit, I mean, it spoke to me. That was an outfit for me. I posted a video of it on my TikTok. You can go watch if you'd like to see. listen, I'm a Timmy fan. I love me some Chalamet. I think he rocked it. I'm still thinking about it many days later. So it's our show, and this show believes in Timothy Chalamet. Oscars look was done right. I'm ignoring all of the comments here, all offending me.
I'm in support.
Support of the comments?
No, support of the outfit. I think he looks great.
That's wife behavior right there.
Alexis would have my back. Just saying.
Okay. It's time to talk about Harry Styles. Okay, again, I haven't had my voice. I can actually feel my throat like shifting into a lower octave as I'm talking here, which is not good. But that's okay. I have a day to recover. Okay, Harry Styles has released As It Was, which is the first single from his new album, Harry's, Marissa?
House.
Thank you. I'm so happy we've all learned. Harry's House. Harry Styles 3, the new era is upon us. Okay, it's very interesting. If you go on Harry Styles TikTok, there are some very, very smart people that have actually put together like all the political commentary that goes into the song and the music video, and how it plays on the Matrix, and it plays on the themes of the Matrix, and it on divorce, and on queer identity and coming out, and how he's threaded it through the Fine Line era to now. And it's there's a lot of things that can be said about the political agenda of Harry Edward Stylish. Here's where I think the interesting conversation is. Harry is in a position to be the most vulnerable he has ever publicly been about his identity. And he has made it, to me, abundantly clear that he may never say in the public realm how he identifies in any capacity. And I think there's a conversation to be had, which has existed for as long as Harry Styles has been in the public spotlight, of what does he owe his audience, right? There are countless videos, you can go search yourselves on the internet, of Harry running around on stage with pride flags, running around on stage with Black Lives Matter flags, running around on stage with supportive flags for different communities, the trans flag, oh, my phone's dying. Literally countless. At every show, there was different flags that he would run around and show his support for and with. So I think there's a lot to be said around like the role that Harry plays and the privilege that he has, and what he can or cannot do or say, or what he can say or what he should say, and all these different things. And my hope is that this is the era where we see a little bit of a line drawn with his music, where he is protecting his boundaries and also asserting the public boundaries that he wants to have. We didn't get that with Fine Line. We got Treat People with Kindness during Fine Line, which is a great song, but I was disappointed because I wanted a bit more of political Harry through that album. So my big statement about HS3 is that I would like it to continue to be as political as this first statement was. I would like him to show what public conversations he is willing to be a part of and what he wants to keep for himself. And in doing so, give the fans and the fan-in and the community space and boundaries to have their fun and enjoy his content within, because that's something that I think we've been needing for a decade from him. And I hope that he feels like he's in a position to assert those boundaries. If he's not, it's a different conversation. But that's my take so far on HS3. I also think the song is good. I feel like he set himself up for failure with Sign of the Times being the most iconic debut single, like before Driver's License, in my opinion. That's one of, to me, the best choices in pop music history, was that he came out with that absolute banger as his first song ever. So to me, every debut song he's going to premiere from here on out isn't going to match that standard that I now feel like I have for him. But it was still a good song, still a strong message, still a strong political message. And I hope that he continues to push us and push himself in all this.
I want to build off that from a perspective of being a visibly queer person. I have no investment in Harry Styles as a person at all. Absolutely none. But I think it's important to recognize the power of representation and the power of visibility, and people in very public spaces being openly and visibly representative of certain communities is super important and super affirming, and can make a lot of good change. But also, nobody owes you visibility, especially people in the public eye, especially celebrities. They do not owe you a single ounce of visibility. And one thing I do know about Harry Styles is he's never been open with that aspect of his life, and I respect him so much for that. Like, yes, draw your lines, draw your boundaries. I would say make it even more explicitly clear what you're talking about. Like, draw those lines, saying this is, part of myself that you don't get to see. That's amazing, and I think will change the culture of how we interact with celebrities in such an important and impactful way by having, very big celebrities saying, this is the line I draw. This is what I will discuss with you. This is what I won't. Will do so much for the balance of like mental health and being a visible person in society. But yeah, I think it's just so important to remember that no matter how much you might want representation, especially queer representation from your celebrities, they don't owe you a damn ounce of visibility. Like the other day was Trans Visibility Day, and I said, I cannot wait until I don't have to be a visibly trans person on the internet. I don't want that to be a part of who I am, but I know how important it is to other people to be a visibly queer person on the internet, and that's why I do it. It's not for me. It's not like I don't put that part of my identity out in the world to benefit myself. It's to benefit others, and I really wish I didn't have to. And so by seeing celebrities draw these lines, I think will do a lot for the culture of how we interact with other people, especially in online spaces, especially in fan spaces regarding people in the public eye. Sorry, I went on a rant there.
That was perfectly said. Perfectly said. Anything you want to add to that? You don't have to. You don't have to.
I liked the song. I didn't love it. That's all I have to say.
Perfect. Bring it back to the actual music.
Well, nobody owes you their identity. Nobody owes you their label. You don't owe yourself a label. Just leave people alone. Leave celebrities alone.
I do think we're at we have like literally 8 minutes left of the show, and I want to talk about Morbius real quick. But I do want to say there's so much nuance to this conversation, and I find it so interesting. I do think we're at a new point in time where the definition of celebrity has changed so drastically that it's forcing what we would consider to be old celebrity, which is like our singers and our actors and those people that find themselves in mainstream media, to have to adapt their own definition of what their public identity is to match this idea of new celebrity, which is what we're seeing from influencers and TikTok and social media and all these other places, right? So Harry is one of the few people that I've said the word convergent so many times tonight, but he is part of that era of people that came up with in both realms, of which there is very, very few. There's like Taylor Swift and Nicki Minaj and Mariah Carey, and like a decade's worth of people that found themselves stuck in the middle of both. So perhaps we'll talk more about that as we venture through what this new era will become. I'm excited to see more from him. I will say that this song, the second I heard it, I was like, I know HBO is like calling up Sony Music to get the rights to that shit for Gossip Girl season 2. Like, I know that's like the opening song. Like, it's not the same as it was. And it's like all of them going back to school or whatever. Like, that song is going to be the teen show song for like any season that's coming out in the fall. Like, we're gonna be sick of that song. It's gonna be everywhere. But also, I'm happy for Harry. Like, get your check if that's what you want. With that said, more on Harry coming. We'll be talking about it. We'll be doing a countdown to midnight party the night that it comes out, so you can stay tuned for details on that as we get closer to May. I want to end the show on the point of Morbius. Hands up if you saw this movie. I didn't, because I was sick, so I wasn't doing anything this week, especially going to see a Jared Leto movie, but that's a different conversation. It's the reviews are in, and what have y'all been seeing about Morbius this week?
My gut was right.
I know this is up and coming in a future MC University movie episode. Way future, years down the line. So I've been actively avoiding it just so I could go to it as unknowledged as possible. But all I know is it's bad.
I so wish I had that excuse and that reason to wait. The reviews are not friendly. I'm gonna live open up Rotten Tomatoes and see if the score on it has changed.
It had a 16% the last I saw.
It had 17
yes!
last time I checked.
It's lower than Punisher 2004.
I mean, I can't remember which
17% from critics, 68% audience score.
I stand by Punisher 2004 being way too high on Rotten Tomatoes. But anything under that, bad movie.
I have no interest in seeing it. I've never had any interest in seeing it. When I saw the trailer, I was like, no, thank you. Absolutely not. And then Matt Smith showed up and I was like, damn it. Because I will watch most things Matt Smith is in, regardless of, anything else surrounding it. So that is the only reason I would watch it, and I will not be watching it in theaters. So I have read the spoilers, and, that's all I needed.
Yeah, I didn't know much about Morbius, and I've been asking for. Alexis has done a very great job explaining Morbius. I think she did a Morbius segment on a past episode. Also, just like in our text, and like, can you just like try and convince me to like watch this? And she's like, well, I'll just tell you about it, but it's not going to convince you to watch it. And she was very right. So I stand by. If I want vampires, I'll watch Twilight. And I didn't need that from Marvel. I don't know. I don't know much about this character. I don't know much about these comics. I haven't really been on the Morbius train like the entire time. So I don't really see myself jumping on it now. But if you enjoy it, okay. Sure.
If you really want vampires, watch the Blade trilogy.
And that's going to be important. Yeah. That's going to be important moving into Phase 4. Right? I'm right about that. We all know what I'm referring to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Blade's coming back. Yeah.
Which is big. It's very exciting. I will also say, I'm not going to say what they are, but I did, because I love how TikTok spoils the post-credit scenes for Marvel movies. I did make a point to go watch the post-credit scenes and the spoilers for those. And they also don't help my interest in watching this movie at all.
No, because they contradict all of the marketing.
Yeah. So maybe we'll leave it on that point. Perhaps we'll give it some more breathing room for those of you who may want to go watch it. Certainly, like we talk about wanting to see representation from Marvel, we talk about accessibility from Marvel, we talk about a lot of things from Marvel. There are some great creators making great points, Danielle Silverstone being one of them, around some of the things Morbius does do okay, and in some cases well, specifically with Matt's character. So you can check out Danielle for some commentary around that. However, I feel like this is not going to be the place to be like if you're a Morbius fan. Like, this is probably not the show for you. There's lots of other people that will enjoy that content with you, and I wish you well in your journey to find them. And with that said, I feel like we've come to the end of our 2 hours. So why don't we let the people know what's going on? I think first, you should know, after party show on all platforms, which I'll pop it in the chat now. I will send it. That's where you can find this show all of the time. Everything you want and need, from the highlights to what we're doing next and talking about next. You will find it on Instagram, on Twitter, and on TikTok at After Party Show. Specifically with the Grammys tomorrow, stay tuned to our Instagram account where we'll be sharing more about the Grammys. We'll be live tweeting from our account tomorrow night. If you're watching, come hang out with us, and perhaps some surprises, some Grammy surprises along the way. Right, Marissa? Marissa was hard at work today with a big request.
Whatever could you mean? Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for more from us on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Twitter, After Party Show. And with that, let's sign off as we always do. I'm producer Liz on TikTok and on Instagram. You can come hang out with me talking about PR and pop culture. And I have a week's worth of not talking to now get out of my system. So you will find me talking this week a lot about Harry Styles, and the Canadian Screen Awards are coming up. This is like the Canadian version of the BAFTAs or the Emmys, where we actually talk about film and television in Canada. That's coming up April 10th. And every day of next week, there's going to be a different award show for a genre. So they're doing like a comedy, technical awards night, etc. throughout the whole week. So I'm going to be sharing updates on that and sharing some of my what I think are some of the big stories of these awards. Because if you don't know, it is a very cool time to be invested in Canadian television. There are some cool things around representation happening that are not taking place anywhere else in Western media that is happening with Canadian storytelling. So I'm going to be sharing some of that this week. So if you're looking for a new show to watch or you want to hear what's going on, producer Liz, that's where you'll find it all this week. And I'll pass it to Marissa. Or this way, I suppose, on the stream, because it's backwards. pass it to Marissa.
I'm Marissa. I'm at Miss Bobissa on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. I don't really know what's coming up for me. It's whatever suits my fancy. Pop culture, Marvel, Disney, theater, probably some discussion of the hair design on Bridgerton is in my future. Very excited for Multiverse of Madness.
You can walk again. So perhaps
I can walk again. Yeah. That was the important update this week I forgot about. Yes, I broke my ankle, if you didn't know, and I got cleared to walk again this week. So very exciting. I'm an independent woman again.
If you don't know, Marissa did an entire show with a broken ankle and did not know. Mm-hmm. It's a few episodes ago.
See if you can figure out which one it was.
I love this development for you. We've really been with you on this entire journey, and I'm glad the journey's over for you.
It's been a journey, for sure.
Sly?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at SlyClanMC. Upcoming for me next week, a new episode of MC University comes out. We've gone bi-monthly because I refuse to use bi-weekly because that means twice a week. Every other week. And it's Fantastic Four 2005. It was a fun episode to record. So, if you want to do your homework, watch that movie before it comes out on Wednesday. And then also this week, I collaborated with a friend of the show, Danielle Silverstone. Go check out their TikTok, where we did a video about famous Jewish stuffed people that was really fun to work on. So, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Love to see it. I'm so excited for that video. I'm so excited that you collaborated with Danielle. I think that's so fun. I love Sly, the content creator. One of the sides of Sly, TikTok creator specifically is what I'm trying to say. Because you were very much a content creator. But when Sly posts on TikTok, I get very excited. So,
I don't do it often.
I know. So when you do, it's like a very special moment. It's a big deal.
Oh, and also I might be in the city around the time of SakuraCon. So if you're in Washington State and near Seattle,
niche content coming to you.
Yeah.
Very exciting. We'll say goodnight to everyone on TikTok first. Thank you for tuning in with us, and give me a moment to end the stream on TikTok. And thank you to everyone for watching with us on YouTube and Twitch. Make sure you're subscribed or following or whatever the thing is on whatever platform you're on. And thank you for your support as we've gone through this whole relaunch together. We didn't really talk about it this week because we didn't have Alexis with us. So it didn't make sense to talk to you all about this new moment without Alexis. But Alexis is back next week. And I'm sure that we will we haven't really talked about what we're going to share, but I'm sure we'll share some of this new brand and what it means to us and some of what you can expect moving forward. More things underway, more things in the works. But please go appreciate Sly's amazing new thumbnails on all of our past episodes. It's a whole new YouTube page for y'all to go venture through to rewatch all of the lives. And they worked very hard on it. We're very proud of it. Our new social handles, After Party Show, SHO, on the 3 platforms we mentioned earlier. And we'll see you tomorrow for all of the Grammy spectacular. So get a good night's sleep, charge your phones, and get ready to pull up a seat because it's about to get loud, besties. And we'll see you there.